Deploying a WordPress website on AWS can be streamlined using Docker Compose, which simplifies the setup and management of the environment. Hello, my name is Alex. I am a senior software engineer specializing in AWS development. I'm going to walk you through deploying a WordPress site on an EC2 instance using Docker Compose, configuring Nginx as a reverse proxy, pointing DNS record to AWS EC2, and securing your site with Let's Encrypt SSL certificates. Let's take a look at the setup for deploying a WordPress website on an EC2 instance. We will configure an EC2 instance running Ubuntu to host all the components. Docker Compose stack represents an instance of WordPress and MySQL. We have a Docker container running WordPress and a Docker container running MySQL. Running MySQL inside the Docker Compose may not be the best way. However, this is the cheapest way to do it. And with the regular backups, data persistence and reliability issue can be mitigated. For large WordPress websites, you may want to use a standalone database. We will configure Nginx as a reverse proxy, and Nginx configured as a reverse proxy is used to handle incoming HTTP requests on port 80. It forwards these requests to the Docker container running WordPress on different port. In our case, it will be port 8080. We will point the subdomain myblog.alexrusin.com to the public IP address of the EC2 instance. And then finally, we will use the certbot to manage SSL certificates for the domain. This ensures secure HTTPS connections for the WordPress site. As you may have already figured out, with this setup, we can have multiple WordPress sites on the same EC2 instance. Let's take a look at the pros and cons of this deployment. So on the pros side, we'll have a simplified deployment. Using Docker Compose simplifies the deployment process by defining all dependencies and configurations in a single file. This makes setting up WordPress and its dependencies like MySQL straightforward and repeatable. We have resource efficiency. Running multiple containers on the same EC2 instance can be more resource efficient than running separate VMs for each service, as containers share the same OS kernel. And finally, we have a cost efficiency. Reuse of the resources means you don't have to pay for extra ones, such as database or ECS containers. On the cons side, we have a single point of failure. If the EC2 instance fails, all running containers, including WordPress and the database, will go down. This can be mitigated with a proper backup strategies and redundancy. We have a resource limitation. An EC2 instance has limited resources, CPU, memory, storage, and running multiple services, WordPress, MySQL, and Nginx, can quickly exhaust them, especially under heavy load. You may need to resize or add more instances, which involves manual intervention. Finally, we have no built-in high availability. Unlike managed services, running WordPress with Docker Compose on EC2 does not offer built-in high availability. You would need to set up multiple instances, load balancers, and replications manually to achieve high availability. Now the fun part. Let's deploy it. But before we do it, if you are enjoying this video, please like and subscribe to our channel to help YouTube recommend it to more viewers. I am in AWS console. Let's start with creating a security group. Let's create a new security group. We're going to call it EC2 Web Instance SG. And description, we can put allow web access to EC2 instance. All right, we'll leave VPC as it is, and the inbound rules, we're going to put a few inbound rules. So we will put HTTP. We're going to select the source anywhere IPv4. And next rule we're going to create will be HTTPS. This will be source as well, anywhere IPv4. Next rule we're going to create, again, going to be HTTP. This one we'll assign anywhere IPv6, and next will be HTTPS, and this one will be the source anywhere IPv6 as well. So these rules take care of a web traffic on port 80 and port 443. So now we need to add SSH rule, right? So let's select SSH. And instead of putting anywhere IPv4, IPv6, or even my IP, I will use an IP block that will allow to do EC2 instance connect. But how do we know this IP block or IP CIDR? So we can go to blog.alexrusin.com, and then you can scroll down and you can find EC2 instance connect. So click in here, and then all the way in the bottom, you're going to have resources, IP address ranges for EC2 Instance Connect service. So you click on that, you're going to have the tab open, and what you can do is to search for the EC2 Instance Connect, right? So, and then when you do that search, you'll have a lot of these EC2 Instance Connect CIDRs, and those CIDRs are for different region. We are in US East 1 or Virginia, so we'll need to find a US East 1 region and copy the IP address block or CIDR. So we'll find US East 1, and let's copy this IP CIDR. After we copied this IP CIDR, now we can go back to the security groups, and we can paste this CIDR in. So now we can go ahead and create security group. Now let's go to EC2 dashboard and let's create an EC2 instance. Let's click on a launch EC2 instance, and here in the name we can put web server 1. I'm just gonna click on Ubuntu because I'm better at configuring Ubuntu servers. Next, on a instance type, I'm gonna actually leave the T2 micro. However, for your purposes, you may want to get a bigger instance, right? Maybe T2 large or T2 medium, and then later on you can reserve that instance to have even more savings. Since we are going to use EC2 Instance Connect, you can just go ahead and proceed without a key pair, which actually not recommended. So you want to create a new key pair just in case. I will actually use a tutorials demo key pair because I'm going to be demoing it in my CLI rather than EC2 Instance Connect. So you can see commands a little bit better. So network settings, we're going to leave as is, except we're going to select existing security group, right? And in the security group, we will find the web access demo security group that we just created. In configuring storage, we will leave as 8 gigabytes, right? The default one, but again, you may want to also make it a little bit bigger storage-wise if you're going to be deploying a lot of containers. Just double check that auto-assigned IP address is enabled. This will place the instance in a public subnet. And yeah, we're good to go. And we can click Launch EC2 Instance. Looks like our EC2 instance is running. Let's select this and click on the Connect. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be using EC2 Instance Connect because we configured the IP address CIDRs here. So let's click in and just wait till it connects. And the connection failed. Let's double check what happened here. So let's go and actually what I did, I connected the wrong security group. So let's click on the security and change the security groups. Right here, I put Web Access Demo. However, we created a different security group. It was EC2 Web at Instance SG. Click Add Security Group and click Save. Now let's go back and click Connect again. And now EC2 Instant Connect is working. However, as I mentioned before, I'm going to actually switch into my own CLI and SSH into this instance so you can see configurations command better. I'm also going to be copying and pasting a lot of commands, and what you can do, you can go to, again, blog.alexrusin.com. You can find the WordPress on AWS EC2 blog post, and you can just find all these commands, how to install Docker, install and configure Nginx, Docker Compose, and how to point your subdomain and configure Let's Encrypt right here. And the link to this article will be in the description. I just SSH'd into my instance. Let's put the first command to update the packages, sudo apt update. Next, let's install a few prerequisites. Next, we're going to install the GPG key for an official repository. Next, we're going to add the repository. Next, we're going to ensure we're going to install Docker from the official Docker repository instead of Ubuntu repository. And finally, we're gonna install the Docker. After Docker is installed, let's check the status of the Docker. And it looks like the Docker is running and active. We actually want to run Docker without sudo, so let's add the Docker to Ubuntu, or our Ubuntu user to a Docker group. Let's go ahead and apply this new membership. And let's check if Ubuntu is in a Docker group. And indeed it is. Next, what we're going to do is install and configure Nginx as a reverse proxy. All right, let's first install Nginx. Let's make sure Nginx is running. And it is. Just do :Q to exit. Let's go ahead and create a configuration file. We'll use nano for that. We'll put sudo nano, and I'm just going to put this file in the sites available, and I'll call it myblog.alexrusin.com. And let's go ahead and put the following code in there. This code is basically makes Nginx listen on port 80 for IPv4 and port 80 for IPv6. And when the server name is myblog.alexrusin.com, right, it's going to be proxying it to the local host 8080 port, and it will include the proxy params. So let's go ahead and make changes to this file or save it. We're going to do Control-X and put Y for yes, and hit enter. So now let's take a look at those proxy params. So we'll do sudo nano etc nginx proxy params, right? And then what we're going to see, it's going to proxy the header, IP, forwarded for, and forwarded protocol, right? So the basic proxy stuff. So let's go ahead and exit out here. So you can do again Control-X. Now we're going to enable this configuration file. In Nginx you're enabling, but by creating a symlink, right? We're going to symlink the sites available, myblog.alexrusin.com, to Nginx sites enabled. All right, after it's done, we can test our configuration. We can do nginx-t, and we forgot to put sudo, so let's do sudo nginx-t. And the configuration syntax is okay, and configuration test is successful. So finally, we're going to restart the Nginx so the settings can take effect, or we can actually reload it as well. So now we should be good to go with Nginx. Next, let's go ahead and create a Docker Compose file, right? We'll create a directory. We're going to put it in www.html myblog.alexrusin.com in Ubuntu home folder. And next, we're going to actually create a composer YAML. We're going to use nano again. And let's go ahead and paste the following code. So let's go ahead, scroll up. So we're basically using MySQL for the database, and we have a volume. It's called DB data. And we have some environment variables, right? Like a strong password, WordPress. Obviously, you're going to put your own environment variables here. We're exposing a couple of ports here, and we're mapping 3306 port, which MySQL normally listens on, to 33060. So then later on, we can actually connect to our database from the outside in case we need to do some database management. So next thing, we have a WordPress, and we're going to be doing WordPress latest image. Right? We're also going to have a volume that we will put in bar.ww.html. That's where WordPress will be installed in the container. And we're also going to be exposing the port 80 of the WordPress, and we're going to be binding it to port 8080. And that's what you saw in the Nginx reverse proxy configuration, that it will be configure requests to the port 8080 on localhost. And we also put the environment variables to just credentials to connect to the database. And we have the two volumes, right? DB data volume and a WordPress data volume. So let's go ahead and do Control-X and put Y and then hit enter. So we have this file. So now let's go ahead and cd www.html myblog.alexrusin.com. And now we can just run Docker Compose up and put -d, so it's detached. And let's just wait till the container is getting pulled and deployed. And it looks like our containers were deployed successfully and are running. So our Docker is running. Now let's go ahead and install Let's Encrypt. To install Let's Encrypt, we're going to be using the snap packet or the snap package manager. You want to remove any old certbots if you have any, but we don't have any, so we'll just run this command just in case. Next, we're going to be installing the certbot, and it will be a classic certbot. Now let's link the certbot command to our path so we can run it. Before we're going to request a certificate, we'll need to go and point the myblog.alexrusin.com to the IP address of this server. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and switch back to the EC2 console. We'll go to EC2 instances and we'll click here, and we need our public IP address, which we're going to copy right over here. Then I have alexrusin.com registered at GoDaddy. So let's go to GoDaddy. And in the GoDaddy, you go to domains, and you're going to manage a DNS record, or I'm going to manage the DNS record for alexrusin.com. I'm going to click on a domain right here and click on a manage DNS. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be creating an A record. So I'm going to do choose one. It will be A record. The name will be my blog. And the IP address we're gonna paste right over here that we copied. TL we can just leave half an hour, should be just fine. Click save. We're gonna click continue and verify, and I'll verify my 6-digit code here. So I successfully verified my identity, and right here I have a record pointing to EC2 instance. So this record hopefully gonna be available right away because it's a new one, and we can go ahead and request a certificate using the certbot. Let's go ahead and use the following command to request certificate. We're going to be requesting it for Nginx and for the domain myblog.alexrusin.com, but obviously in your case it will be your own domain. All right, let's hit enter. Just asking for the email address. You can enter your email address here. It's going to say read terms and services. You put yes. Once you first issue to share your email address with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, maybe we'll put no, and account registered, requesting certificate. And we have some challenges have failed, so probably the domain myblog.alexrusin.com has not finished propagating, so we can want to wait for a little bit longer. On the second time is a charm. We just rerun the following command again, and it looks like domain finally propagated. So, and the certificate got issued. So let's go ahead and take a look at the file, configuration file for the myblog.alexrusin.com. So we'll put sudo nano etc nginx sites available and put myblog.alexrusin.com. You can see the file actually got changed here, right? So we still have the server name as myblog.alexrusin.com. We still have a proxy, but now we have added 443 SSL and SSL certificates, right? And we also have a out-of-the-box 301 redirect to HTTPS that hosts that URL. So if someone uses HTTP, right, on port 80, it will automatically redirect it to the port 443. So Nginx installation of certbot took care of that as well, which is pretty neat. So now let's go ahead and exit, Control X. And Let's Encrypt certificates last only for 90 days, so it is important to renew them regularly. And luckily, the certbot package actually we installed handles this automatically by setting up a timer that runs twice a day. And if certificate is about to expire within 30 days, it will renew it automatically. So let's go ahead and query the status of the timer. And we'll do the following command. And we can see that the timer is active. So run a test renew with the following command, sudo certbot renew --try run, right? So and that's they're simulating the renewal of the certificate to make sure everything is good. Now the fun part, let's go ahead and visit myblog.alexrusin.com, right? And we went to WordPress installation, right? And let's just double check that if we use the HTTP protocol, it will redirect us to HTTPS, which it did. So here we can see that install.php has a 301 moved permanently, and now we're using HTTPS. So everything works fine, so we can just go ahead and install WordPress. I'll just click continue, and it's a basic WordPress installation. You give your site title, you'll put username, your email, and you just click install WordPress. And as you can see, I have successfully installed WordPress. And also, if you can go to the myblog.alexrusin.com or your blog in that case, you can see the blog. Deploying WordPress website on EC2 instance using Docker Compose, it's a pretty good way of deploying, medium to small size blogs, but it doesn't matter how big your blog is, right? It's always important to use the backups for your WordPress website. And if you would like to learn how to do that and back up your WordPress website on S3 Bucket, please check out this video.